Hey guys, Lemon02. Gonna be doing a Canadian Highlander video. Been off it for a while. This has been my first video in about 2 weeks. Doesn't mean I've been working on decks, just haven't had much that I really cared to share quite yet. But I think this is one that I kind of do want to get out there. Most of my recent content has been basically surrounding blue decks. And I want to do something that was definitely not blue, but something that, like, at least for me historically has some resonation. Of all the decks, all like the competitively viable decks that are in the format, I probably have the most reps on like 4-color blood variants, like the deck you have in front of you, which is just a 4-color like mid-range deck, and Death and Taxes over blue decks. And some of that's also because of like my history in 100-card formats as well, like being like just 100-card singleton, which was an online filtered format. Eventually taken offline, then played by a smaller cadre of players, is a player-run event. German Highlander, and obviously, like most recently, and like most of my content provided, the Canadian Highlander, which is a more wide format than either of those two are. So the reason that I was really kind of interested in going back to this deck specifically is that, like, you kind of hear about like 4-color blood decks, which, like, the name, if you're confused as to why the deck would be called, that's Bloodbraid Elf, which the deck no longer plays, or at least my version of the deck is not playing. Which may be now like a misnomer, but I don't think it's quite good enough anymore. That's kind of where the naming comes from, but I think the deck realistically originated in like Germany / Europe for the Euro Highlander, the German Highlander scene. It was kind of seen there. I don't know who the originator of the deck was, but I probably knew at one point. But it's kind of been a mainstay in that format. Which is a much more grindy format. It's unpowered, ban list, a lot more restriction on what you can build with, a lot less unfair decks are as viable as they are in Canadian Highlander, which kind of put the deck into a weird spot, right? Where, you had this list that traditionally is running like, 8 planeswalkers, like 4 and 3 drop planeswalkers, and like more value-centric creatures, and like it's just not going to get there against like Tendrils of Agony decks. But with recent like Time Vault decks, there's a lot of decks like Scape Shift, even High Tide. A lot of those style decks, like this style of deck, can struggle with. So what you'll see is like a natural adaptation in the format, like over time of like his combo kind of rose and got better and better. Was among the best decks. Like Storm was the best deck until recent points changes, like by a significant margin. With Breach unpointed, and the deck got hit with like 4 points. Well, correction, 3 points. One more on Will, one on Breach, one on Wishclaw Talisman. So, that said, like this deck, 4-color blood, kind of adapted into becoming like a very aggressive deck. So like think Goblin Guides, Wild Nicoddles, 2 power, 1 mana, ideally 3 toughness, 1 mana and 2 power. And there's a lot of those cards now. A lot more 2-drops, like just very aggressive. Maybe cap off at like 1 Saskia, but no other 4-drops, and just like murder people dead as fast as you can. Have the most efficient disruption. Have some more Death and Taxes style cards, but really kind of get away from the value-oriented, aggressive game plan that like the original decks had. Which were much more value-centric. So like your Bloodbraid Elf, which is still aggressive, but like is finding your Anafenza, the foremost, or your Tireless Tracker. You're playing like cards like Ajani, the original Ajani, stuff like that. Like cards that realistically like are probably too slow for Canadian Highlander are probably fine in Eurolander. In 100 card, they were fine, because it's also a ban-listed format with a sideboard, but it was unpowered. But, because of the changes in, like, the most unfair decks, because of the pointing on price of progress, like, I think you're fine to kind of take this deck back to its roots, so to speak, and make a more value-centric, aggressive mid-range deck. And it's something that I want to explore. It's got probably one of my least favorite point spreads, which is Triple Mox plus Mind Twist, which is a thing you can do. This build of it is definitely base Abzan, with red as the lowest color requirement, but not by a significant margin. It's still very heavily red. It's still very solidly 4-color. It's not an Abzan splash red deck. It's certainly a 4-color deck. So yeah, it's kind of where I took it. The deck philosophy is basically just play the best cards in the game. Best independent card quality. So, like, think Tarmogoyfs, Think Assassin's Trophies, think Ren and Sixes, think Questing Beasts, think Chandra Torch and Defiance. Just cards that, like, in and of themselves, end games of Magic, they provide you value, they kill people. That's just the plan. It's very, very simple. So in order to get to that plan, like, this is a less traditionally efficient deck. This is an accelerated deck, so we have 11 pieces of acceleration over here, all of these mana dorks, and Deathrite Shaman does double duty as multiple different things, disruption, life gain, whatever you want it to be. I'm not going to go ad nauseum over the mana base. I will say this, like, this mana base, if you're going to pick this deck up, this specific build, which I will link the list in the comments section below, as well as any gameplay if you want to skip this entirely. If you're going to pick this deck up and play it and change cards out, if you do it, I very strongly urge you to rebalance the mana base. The mana base is very attuned to the card choices that I've made specifically for this deck. Why do I mention that? Well, 4-Color Blood's a very mutable deck. Like, you could want to put in Gruul Spellbreaker because you have access to one, and it's a fine card. It's a good card, right? And, like, maybe Kuranos just isn't necessary in your metagame. It's probably independently a better card than Gruul Spellbreaker, but not by a significant margin. But if you do that, you are going to throw the mana base off. So this mana base, because it is a very solidly 4-colored deck, is not tricky, but it requires attention, right? So this is the deck on Tapped Out. As you can see, like, this is the mana wheel. A lot of folks upload decks, and I don't know if all folks really take a look at this thing. I also have an Excel tracker, but I'm not going to pull that up and bore you with stats. I'm just going to tell you, like, look at this thing right here whenever you put a deck up on Tapped Out. In a deck like this, where I'm not playing blue and I'm not doing anything tricksy, like playing Scape Shift, where, like, I need to have certain mountain counts, or, like, if I'm playing a deck that, like, is comboing with, like, Mystic Sanctuary and, like, I need to have more islands, like, these numbers are going to skew a bit. But ideally, like, this wagon wheel on the outside meets up with the wagon wheel on the inside. This is our card cost twice our land count, our ability to produce those colors with the lands that we have in our deck. As you can see, this is balanced within, I think, like a 0.5% for each color. Which is very close, very tight specification. But what this means is I'm going to draw more keepable hands. I'm going to fight less variance in a deck that does not have cantrips, and that really relies on opening consistency, and then top decking good cards to win the game. So the closer and the tighter you can get this wagon wheel to kind of match up and line up, the better. The reason I bring that up is because, folks will pick up lists like this and, like, change out 1-for-1 cards, maybe change out 3 to 4 cards, maybe 6 cards. And as you do that, and the color requirements in those cards are different than the ones that have been chosen by the builder of the deck, you're gonna drop consistency, honestly, to a decent margin. Like, I would say in some cases, if you changed out 5 to 6 cards and they were different colors than the cards that are being played in the deck, or different color requirements than the cards that are being played in the deck, like, you could drop by as much as, like, 7.5% of opening hand consistency keeps, 10% even. So as you go through the mana base, you'll see some, like, kind of, like, different ones, some ones that, like, maybe you wouldn't traditionally expect. Like, I'm not a fan of having to play Llanowar Waste, but I'm playing a Llanowar Waste in this deck because it's primarily a rock-based deck. Like, the two strongest color suits that it requires are black and green. If you were to change that and make it more of a green-white deck, which I would say typically, like, these decks, the more aggressive they get, the more red-green they become. The mid-range variants in, like, green or white, they become, like, you can become more Hateberry with, like, white-green. The more mid-range you get, I think the more you slant into rock colors, like I have done with this deck. So it's just something to keep in mind, like, as you're changing this deck, or as you're altering it. The mana base is not going to be consistent. I'm not going to go through and, like, go, like, buy land. I mean, I'm playing a Caracas in this deck. I'm playing a Wasteland in this deck. I had someone ask me about that. They're like, you're playing a Wasteland in a 4-color deck? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Like, you're a very high land count deck because, like, you expect that your card quality is going to be higher than your opposition's. And in general, like, your independent card quality is going to be. So you'll top deck well. As long as you have hands that can produce the colors of mana you require, you'll draw good stuff. Like, that's just what it's supposed to do. That said, like, we're playing the fast lands that make the most sense. We're playing, the one pain land that makes the most sense. Only one of them. Caracas for utility. Wasteland for utility. And then, like, we have all of the canopy lands that are on color for the deck. So that's the mana. I bring that up because like I really urge you, if like you've never mana tuned a deck, like go through and do it. It's gonna make a big difference in the results you get with your decks. Like I recently, like I've done it a couple of times in the Discord. Like I wouldn't say sit down, but like I've dialogued with folks about mana balancing decks where like they were like a pattern rector deck and like they were producing like 13 to 14% too little green mana for like the green requirements, which it's a green X deck, so like green is probably the most important color in it. And I made the changes and like the consistency on the deck really jumped. You just got a lot more opening hands. So you're like, yep, I can keep this. I'll be able to play a game of Magic. Yeah, it's one of the small things that you can do if like you're a newer builder of decks. Like some folks are tuners, some folks just want to pick up a good tuned list and play them. And all that's fine. And some decks are deck builders, but if you are not like per se a deck builder, like at a minimum, like if you're gonna pick up a deck and like you have to change things out because like life is about practicality and like if you're trying to pick this deck up, this is no doubt an expensive deck. Like maybe you have to proxy some cards. But if you're changing one for ones out as far as the threat base goes, the tutor package, the disruption, the kill spells, like definitely go through and like map out the mana. Like just do or upload it and change out the mana as needed to allow it to be tailored to the cards that you have in it. I belabor that a lot for more advanced players. It's obvious. More advanced builders, it's obvious. And I'm sorry I'm belaboring it so much, but it's something that like a lot of folks just don't do, and it's not a knock on you if you don't do it. But give it a try because it will definitely increase your results, and you'll get to play more games of Magic, which is good. Because Magic's a fun game, and it sucks to not play in 10% of the games you play because your mana base doesn't work. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna get off it. I just wanted to kind of jump into that tirade because it's a consistent theme that I've seen in interacting with folks in this community, and frankly others, like just in Magic in general. I think it's a skill set, but like not even a skill set. There's a science to it, right? Like that's just science. There's no art to it. It's just like pure science. Like if you sit down and put in a little bit of yeoman's work, it'll pay off, right? So anyways, we're mana accelerated. We do have solid 2-drops in the deck, but ideally we're looking to turn 3 by turn 2 is what we're looking to do. And let me pull up this display window real fast. There we go. In your 3-drop, you got Even Mind Sensor. Nothing else really does this effect. I mean, you have like Leonin Arbiter, but I don't want to nerf my own fetch lands, which I run a lot of. This card's a little small. The body's a little tiny, but I think there's enough decks. This card just hoses out. Flash speed, gets fetch lands. I mean, it basically stops stuff in every deck. Yeah. I think this is just one of the tools of the trade. Like, you play Even Mind Sensor if you're in white. Maybe not in all decks, but in most of them. Thalia Heretic Cathar, this card just hoses folks. It's just a beating. It's Karakas bait, but the fact that it makes all the non-basics come into play tapped, all the creatures come into play non-tapped, it attacks for a whole boatload of damage. Just a really good card. Plagueinge, yep, this is just a board wipe. Very, very good card. Leon of the Last Hope, this is a recursive tool. Like, the ultimate's pretty powerful, and a lot of folks cite the ultimate. Like, it's not going to ultimate that often in this deck. Like, oftentimes you're going to kill some stuff with it, or shrink some stuff with it. You're going to return some stuff that died in combat, or died to burn with it. And because your stuff's really good, it's like Murderous Rider. Well, I guess Murderous Rider's not a good example. That doesn't go. That goes to the bottom of your deck. But like, it's like Kuranoses and Luxodon Spiders and Seskias. Like, they're just big dumb cards, and like, it kills something in a block, and then like they kill it with burn after block at a 2-for-1 rate, and then you just Liliana it back, and it's like they have to do another 2-for-1, and like you just grind them out of cards that way. This card's very grindy, very good in grindy strategies. Murderous Rider. Yeah, these adventure cards are absurd. So Murderous Rider, Bone Crusher, which is technically a 3-drop, but I kind of put my 2-drop spot as well as Brazen Borrower when I'm playing blue. I tend to treat these cards as 2-drops because they have 2-drop utility. They have turn 2 utility on natural mana progression. I think it's fine to treat them as 2-drops that way. And then this is a 3-mana 4/3. Like, if they do anything to try to kill it, like, it domes them for 2. It's just like really good. Like, it'd be good without Stomp on it, but it's just made absurd with Stomp on it. Murderous Rider, just a way to deal with damn near anything, or just an okay threat. Like, it's not a great threat, but it's okay. Like, it's a 2/3 lifelinker. It's fine. If you don't have anything else going on, this is something that's really good to do. Tireless Tracker, yeah, card's great. Just grinds folks out. Corsair Crew Fix. This card is probably one of the closer ones to the chopping block in the deck. I do really like Corsair, and one of the reasons it's included is it's just a really good hedge against aggressive decks. It's incremental life gain, it's card advantage, it's really a 4-drop, so is Tireless Tracker. You want to play them out and then just get immediate value off of it, like have a land drop available, or with Tireless Tracker have a fetch land in hand, drop it on turn 4, play your fetch land immediately after dropping it, get 2 clues out of it, which is going to give you a mana sink as the game progresses, so you can draw into more gas and ideally just grind them out. It's kind of the idea behind Corsair too. It's also just a good blocker. This is a deck where like you're a mid-range deck. You're attacking and defending, right? And this card kind of does the defending piece a little better than the attacking piece, which is kind of like one of the deficits I see in it, or I have with it. But it's not a bad all-around card. It's a little harder to cast, but we are primarily a green deck, so I've liked it. Vindicate. Again, like I don't know on this one. Like the first 2 cards, I will admit, the first 2 cards I put in this deck were Vindicate and Maelstrom Pulse, because like they are kind of like older school, like quintessential like 4-color blood cards. You just like have them like just answer card, like just the best kill spells, and they are very good kill spells. I cut Pulse. Vindicate's on the fence for me. Like it does just deal with anything, right? Any permanent it's gonna kill. I guess outside of like shrouded stuff and True Name Nemesis and whatnot, you have to have Council's Judgment for that. But like I'm not going that deep. I don't want that many. I don't want a double white card at 3. But I left it in. You could cut this card and put in another threat. I do kind of like the flexibility that Vindicate gives. Like if they get down an Academy early, you can just use this to kind of buy yourself some time, which is good. The fact that it can hit lands is kind of nice, just is a tempo play. Like it can be Stone Rain. It can also deal with an early walker that's turboed out with accelerated mana. You name it. Like Vindicate just answers anything, and like I think if you are fighting to the board, like on turn 4 or 5, if the board's contested, you can clear the board up with Vindicate and then just get them, just beat them down. Fire Covenant. This is, in my opinion, a very underplayed card. A lot of these mid-range decks will tend to play Toxic Deluge, but because this deck is running 38 creatures, is very board-based, I don't really want to hinder my own development. I also have a significant bit of life gain in the deck, so life loss is not irrelevant, but the ability to like board wipe Death and Taxes, or even Red Deck Wins, like if you're doing it on like turn 2 against like 3 threats, after their turn 2 development, like 1-drop plus 2 1-drops, you mana dork them on your turn 1, turn 2, Fire Covenant, kill 3 of your things. Like they're probably not winning that game. That's a lot of resources lost for 1 card, which is pretty big. Just a very powerful effect. If you're not familiar with this one, like, it's an Ice Age card. So red, black, 1 instant. It's an instant speed card too, which is really sick. It's instant speed Wrath. That's one-sided. You pay X life, so that's an additional cost to cast the spell. So if it gets countered, like you're kind of shit out of luck. But generally speaking, like decks that run counter spells aren't like flooding the board with creatures. Sometimes they do, but it's not likely for them to do that. But it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. Just a beating. Just a one-sided board wipe. Kolaghan's Command, also beating. Just annihilates artifacts, annihilates hands, gets back your really good cards, like your Saskias and your Siege Rhinos and your Queen Marchesas and whatnot. So, yeah, just good. Kitchen Finks. Again, like, I wanted this deck to be able to beat, like, Red Deck Wins. Red Deck Wins is, like, one of the top decks. I wanted to have a fairly matchup positive percent versus that deck, and I think I'm in a place where, like, I can say I probably do have a pretty matchup positive percent against Red Deck Wins, and some of it's going to be draw dependent. Like if I mulligan to Oblivion, yes, I'm still going to lose to Red Deck Wins. Every deck that mulligans to Oblivion loses to Red Deck Wins. I'll also probably mulligan more often because they're going to be a more consistent deck than this deck will be, but that's the nature of like playing a monochromatic deck that has 1 4-drop in it and a bunch of 1 and 2 drops in it. You just don't require that much to go right in your opening hands, whereas like a deck like this needs a fair mix of things to go right in the opening hands. But that's the same argument for like Control or any other mid-range, in my opinion. But yeah, Kitchen Finks is just pretty good in all matchups, except in combo, but like it's good in mid-range mirrors, good in aggressive matchups. It's fine versus Control. It's running like Wrath of Gods and whatnot. The card's just really good. It also just hits for a lot. Knight of the Autumn does everything. Reclamation Sage used to be a star. A Knight of the Autumn has taken the stage at this point. If you're playing white and green, you play this one. That's one of the downsides of playing Jund as opposed to like an Abzan base is you don't get to play this card unless you're splashing for it. Renegade Rallier, yeah, just value and hits hard. Like getting back the Dream Wasteland off of this is nice. But you also have a lot of power twos in the deck. I mean, you got like your Kasali Pride Mage, your Voice of Resurgence, your Sculler, your Scavenging Ooze, your Renin 6, like just a lot of really good twos. Anafenza, just huge. Also hoses graveyard decks. Like if there's graveyard reanimator style decks, this card just utterly f's them. It also just kills people really fast. Like you're attacking for 5 damage. If you're attacking with 2 things, this and another thing, like you're attacking for 5 damage, the turn after it comes in play, and it's just really big. Like one of the downsides to like running the volume of legendary spells that we're running in this deck, we're running a few. We've got the Thalia, this one, Kuranos, or Kanoros, Saskia, Queen Marchesa, and Questing Beast. So 6. That's 6. I think that's 6. Is that like Karakas can be a problem? That's another reason like to have a card like Vindicate in your deck is because you're running more legends. You have the Wasteland as well, but we're not a crop rotation deck, so like finding the answers, and we have Tainted Pack, so like finding the answers is more accessible. But I do think Anafenza is just like a pretty good card, and frankly doesn't see as much play as I think it possibly should. Because folks, I think, get shell-shocked by the power of Karakas. It's good. Don't get me wrong. Like, it sucks when it happens. The way that, like, you have too many legends in your hand and you just get Karakas every turn. But, like, they don't always have it. When they don't, this thing just needs to hit once. And, like, if they Karakas the turn after it hits once, like, you're probably fine. Luxon Smiter. I did have Mathis in the deck. That card, like, I really like. And I think if I was only going to play grindy, attritional creature matchups, I'd probably run it over Luxon Smiter. But you won't play only those kind of matchups in Canadian Highlander. You'll play against, Storm. You'll play against Control. Luxon Smiter probably just has more. It's bigger. It just hits harder. It gets through disruption. If you get him to turret, it comes into play. If it's one of the cards you have in your hand, it's one of the cards that gets hit. Rise Fall, Mind Twisted, you name it. Liliana the Veiled. Like, Liliana the Veil has kind of dropped off. I think folks have started to properly assess that card as being more niche playable in the format, which is to say you probably want to be playing Light from the Loam and or like playing a Drago-esque like black-white Pox deck or something like that. But Smiter is just really big. Hard to interact with the aggressive decks because it has 4 toughness. It also just kills most things in combat. Just big. Mathis is a really cool card, and like I said, if I was only playing against like aggressive white decks and like attritional matchups, I'd probably run it over Luxon Smiter. But Karakas is a reality, and like while I am playing more legends than typical, I think you do have to cut it off at a certain point. Alright, Kunros, this card's really good. Like, there's 11 cards from 2019 in this deck, I want to say. This is one of them. God damn, this card's good. So, like, we actually are running a 4-color deck that doesn't really get hosed by this. This card is not a one-sided effect, which is an odd design in 2019/2020. This hoses everyone equally as far as graveyard hosing goes. As creature cards and graveyards can't enter the battlefield, players can't cast spells from graveyards. It has Vigilance, Menace, and Lifelink as a 3/3 for 3. Vigilance is really good for starters. Menace is really good. Lifelink's really good. Like, this card's just so good. It just has so many pro words on it. That's kind of one of the things you'll see as we go through. I mean, just the pro words. Oof. Like, what are they going to do? Like, Lightning Bolt it? Sure. But, like, we have a bunch of these kind of cards, right? But this card just randomly hoses, like, Dredge decks, hoses Storm decks, hoses Reanimator, kind of like Anafenza does. And it's, without that like, random kind of the sideboard style hate card printed on the bottom half of the card, it's just a good creature. So, I like the card. Anyways, there's a reason I talk the 3s before the 2s, and I don't have the cards split out by purpose because a lot of these cards kind of do similar things, and we'll talk the ones that don't, is because we have 11 mana accelerants. We're planning on our turn 2 being our turn 3. That's kind of the philosophy behind the deck. That said, most folks have the common adage of bolt the bird, right? Like, you just kill the bird off. If you kill the bird, you still got a pretty good 2-game plan. So, like, if the bird gets bolted, because most of your hands ideally are containing, like, one of these 11 cards in them, and a pretty good chance of that, too. You've got Voice of Resurgence, good against the counterspell decks, a pain in the ass in the fair attritional matchups because it dies, and you get value off of it. You get another creature back. Kasali Pride Mage attacks for 3 on its own, or allows your 1-drop dork to attack for 2 the turn it comes in, and removes problematic permanents. Birthing pods, moats, whatever. Riptide, whatever it might be. Eldambri's Call just, sets up. Generally, you're going to find a 4-drop with this on your turn 2 if you have a dork. If you don't, I guess maybe a 3. But Eldambri's Call just a good card. Lightning Helix just removes stuff, gains you life. It's just Guy Tech. Card's just really good. It's a very, very strong card. Renin 6. Yeah, this is not a lands deck, but Renin 6 is just so good. Like, in mirror matches, you just kill mana dorks off. If you're not killing mana dorks off, you get back a fetch land, of which this deck runs, I think, every single fetch land in the game of Magic. I could be mistaken. I have to go double check, but I'm almost. No, it doesn't run Prismatic Vista. It doesn't run the stuff that brings stuff into play taps, like Fable Passage, Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse. We're not running those, because we only have 2 basics. But, outside of the basic fetching ones only, running all the fetch lands. So you can build your mana base with this card very easily. You can kill mana dorks off. We also have Wasteland. We also have Nurturing Peatland, Silent Clearing, and Sunbaked Canyon. So it can also be card draw. The retraceability is nice on this, but realistically, you're running it for the first 2 abilities. You don't expect to ultimate with it. I had an opponent when I was in ultimate range comment on that. And I'm like, it doesn't really do that in this deck. It's not built to really do that in this deck. But the card's just such a high quality for 2 mana that I think you just should run it. Grimflayer, this card's on provisional status right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with it in the build, but I really like this card. This is a deck that is very easy to turn on Delirium because it consists of sorceries, instants, creatures, and lands, right? Just of the 4 card types, of the 4, those are the 4 primary card types it has. It doesn't have any artifacts. I think it has 0 artifacts, but I have to double check that. Oh, I'm sorry, it has the artifact mana. It has the ramp. Or, I'm sorry, the acceleration. And I don't think it has any enchantments either. It has enchantment creatures. It's very easy to turn on Delirium in this deck, and if you can reliably have this thing as a 4/4, it's a good card. It's not as good as a 2/2, but a trampling 4/4 that filters your draw is very good. It's just very, very good. It's a Tarmogoyf kind of pseudonym, if you will. It just, it does a very good impersonation of it. And I think we're at a point where, playing Sylvan Library, even though I love Sylvan Library, is probably not correct in this style of deck. I think it's too slow. I also think the format's fast enough that, I want to play Sylvan Library in a format where I can take 8 life loss off of it on the second turn or at the turn after it's come into play, and be fine with that. That's how when that card used to, I think, be good in the format. I used to feel very safe doing that. Take 8, just rip them off. Doesn't matter what they are. Unless I have a fetch land, maybe I don't. Then maybe if I have a fetch land, I look at them, and if they're good, I rip them off. If they're not good, I put the 2 shittiest back, and then play my fetch land. Fetch, then the turn after, do the same thing, and then, take 8. So yeah, anyways, Grimflayer is a more proactive variant. I equate it to a Tarmogoyf meets a Sylvan Library. You're not drawing the cards with it, but you're killing them faster, and you're essentially securing your top deck. But it's questionable. Assassin's Trophy, Decay, just premium removal. Title of Scholar, yep, playing this guy. Just a more hand attack. It's also an artifact creature, which is kind of relevant when you start looking at Tarmogoyf math, when you start looking at, Grimflayer math. It does help kind of set that up as well, and it's also just nice to be able to have a proactive way of disrupting their hand, which still clocks them for a significant amount. Goyf, yep, still good. Probably always will be, but yeah, love the card. Sylvan Caryatid, Paradise Druid, and Lotus Cobra, my mana acceleration to help me get into 4 on 2. 2 of them attack really well, the other one just blocks really well, and they all help generate pretty much perfect mana. And Lotus Cobra is just gross acceleration. Scavenging Ooze, Ubiquitous Green. If you're not playing this in green, in general, I'd say you're probably doing something wrong. Unless you're playing Storm. There's green decks that don't need to play Scavenging Ooze. This card's really good. You probably should be generally. It's just good in every matchup. It's good against combo because it Fs up the bin. It's good in like critter mirrors because like you have a bunch of removal, you're killing critters, you're making this thing bigger, you're gaining life, which is allowing you to race them, you're making your creature bigger, which is attacking for more damage, so you're winning faster. It's just it does all of it, which is really good. And it's a really cool card design too. Like this card is really, I think it's an old commander card. It's really cool. Braid, just some of the most flexible removal that have been printed recently. This card is just great. The flexibility to kill a thing or blow some artifacts up, just good. Tainted Pact, yep. We're running some Hoser cards. They have like random Questing Beast, random Vindicate, Wasteland, Kuranos, even Mind Sensor. Sometimes just Saskia to kill them. Sometimes Mind Twist. You can find a ton of different stuff with this card. We are a good stuff deck, so like in general our top decks are going to be good, but sometimes you just need specificity in a situation, and I can't think of a better Tainted Pact deck. It's more value oriented. You're not comboing with this deck, obviously, but sometimes you just need a very pointed piece of disruption to stop a certain thing or sequence of plays from happening. Dark Confidant. A lot of folks scoff at this card. I don't know why. Like I think most enfranchised players know the power of Bob. Bob's great. Folks talk all the time about like, oh, you can draw a 4-drop or draw a 6-drop and die. I mean, one, we're not playing 6 drops in this deck, and 2, like, if you're in a matchup where Bob's not good, just block with it. Like, the matchups where Bob's not good, you have the opportunity to block. They need to be attacking you. Like, just put it in front of a Goblin Guide and just trade it off. It's fine there. In the matchups where that's not relevant, draw cards. Kill them. Like, you'll kill them faster from drawing 2 cards a turn, especially in a deck like this where, like, your independent card quality is so goddamn high. Dark Confidant's great. Collective Brutality, one of the best discard spells to have been printed in recent history. This card is really good. I'm not running Hymn to Turek, which is played more traditional, or has been played in more traditional lists, especially in like Eurolander. I think the double black is just really hard on 2. I don't think the card scales per se all that well. Like it probably scales up to like turn 4 in games of Kinglander, but like it's against some decks it scales further than that. But like I think in the aggregate, like if you're not casting a Hymn to Turek before turn 4, like it's not going to be good after that. Like in some matchups, it's not even good up to turn 4. It's got to be cast on turn 2. Like think red deck wins possibly. Like yeah. Alrighty, and then the rest of the stuff in the 1 is just all removal and hand attack. So you have like your standard stuff: Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, Duress, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push, Lightning Bolt, Fork Bolt, Chain Lightning. No Flame Slash. I have better removal in this deck than Flame Slash. Flame Slash is a good card, but this deck doesn't need it because you have Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy. You have these 2 white ones. You just have a lot of stuff that can deal with creatures, right? You also have big creatures that can just kill other big creatures in combat. Anyway, on a force, this is really the heart of the deck. This is what you're, accelerating towards. These are your ideal like turn 3 plays in this style of deck. Gideon Ally of Zendikar, just the best in the White Planeswalkers, in my opinion, at killing folks rapidly. Protects and attacks. Elsbeth, Knight Errant, also quite good and historically has been played in these decks. Flying, still not irrelevant on that card, but this card just protects better. Making a 2-power body the turn it comes in, as opposed to a 1/1 or like pushing for a ton of damage is pretty good. You can also Anthem them if you have like a big creature board, like a big flood of creatures, but keep in mind, like we have 38 creatures, but like quite a few of them are mana dorks. So like our creature count's really more around like 30, right? We're using a lot of those critter slots as like mana. They're actually mana to accelerate the deck. So the Anthem's not as great in this style of deck, but this card independently just kills folks so fast. Yeah, very good. All right, Palace Jailer. Yeah, this card's just messed up magic. The Monarch is really screwed up. Being able to exile something until you lose the Monarchy is very good. It's not at its best in this deck because like I think the best decks for Palace Jailer are like the Blink deck, like not committed Blink decks, but like the decks that run like Ephemerate and like Soul Herder and stuff like that. Charming Prince. We're not running all those cards because we're not really a high synergy deck. We're a good stuff deck, but Palace Jailer definitely is definitely still great in this deck because this is a board-based deck, and like being able to get through damage is going to be relevant. Also, taking them off a relevant resource, well-drawing cards. Like this card just has design flaws just throughout it, and ergo, while we're playing it in this deck, it's that good. Shutter Torch of Defiance is very good. She does something different than Chad/Gideon Ally of Zendikar does up here, in the fact that like she is a card engine. Unlike Gideon, who is not. And she's also a board control component. She's basically a Flame Tongue Kavu that can draw you cards. Or make you mana. So it's like she's a mana rock plus a James Day Tome plus a Flame Tongue Kavu. That's all pretty good. So we're playing her because she's very, very good. Questing Beast. The first time I played with this card was actually today. This card is, excuse the language, fucked up. But I also think it's honestly maybe a necessary evil, is one of the things I was thinking of while I was playing the card and kind of doing some degenerate stuff with it. Here's my thinking on it too, right? Like, so I don't know if everyone who's watching this probably played more Questing Beast than I have, but for me, like, I tend to be more like I'll have thoughts on things, but then like I like to back it up with like empirical evidence or like test it out. I thought this card was fucked up. It is. And maybe that's just like it's very apparent by looking at the card. But like one of the interesting things about it that I kind of like is that it creates an interesting answer to like the sub game that planeswalkers represent, which is that your opponent plays a planeswalker. Let's say Gideon, ally of Zendikar, and makes a 2/2. You've now entered a sub game of Magic the Gathering, in which you need to find a way to remove that 2/2 and attack the Gideon down to 0. So the Gideon is essentially acted as a fog, but a whole draw step, a whole turn cycle, in which your opponent can be continuing to enhance their proactive game plan, which they probably are on one if they're playing Gideon. And you've been forced to commit cards, probably multiple of them, and a full attack step in turn in dealing with this one card, as opposed to dealing with ending the game against them. Well, Questing Beast kind of turns that on its head, right? Because like you just attack them, the Gideon dies, the 2/2 can't block it, and I'm talking specifically in terms of Gideon. You'll see in some of the games we play like that actually literally happened. But Questing Beast allows you to actually continue to go after your primary game plan, which in a deck like this, a deck that's running Questing Beast, is to kill people, to end their 20 life points or however many life points they have, bring them to 0 or lower. And win, right? And this card can kind of negate that sub-game that's generated by Planeswalkers, almost all of them. And we're at a point now where like there's enough Planeswalkers that like you can play a Planeswalker deck that has like 30 good Planeswalkers. Maybe not 30, maybe like 24 really good ones, and like 30, like 6 are just medium. But they really can generate a very oppressive game state where like they're very snowbally, right? And Questing Beast is kind of an elegant way, in my opinion. It's an overpowered card, but it is an elegant way of like getting around the snowballing effects of Planeswalkers, because it's not taking you off your primary game plan to have to attack them. And the fact that it does the damage to them and then just hits their walker for the same amount of damage anyways is really absurd, but it's also an elegant answer to how Planeswalkers kind of treat games of Magic. So I honestly don't think this card is a complete design failure. I think there's some success in it, and I was kind of happy with how it played. I mean, I was happy I got to ranch people with it, right? It's a ranching, but like, in my opinion, it's kind of the kind of ranching that like almost feels fair to a certain extent. It's like, all right, I played this card that invalidated your card that was trying to invalidate my whole deck, and it didn't work. Like, it's kind of like a counterspell that way, right? Like, it just, the best way to deal with walkers is to like counterspell them. Killing a walker once it's on the board is like, it's normally very resource intensive. Like, that's why like cards like Dreadbore like are apparently powerful, but like generally if you're Dreadboring a Planeswalker, they already got some amount of advantage out of it, and you're using up your mana to do a non-proactive play to deal with something they've done, and you're basically giving the momentum to them. Whereas Questing Beast doesn't require you to give up any momentum to actually do it. So, and a lot of this is obvious if you just think about it, but like I think it's kind of like honestly a bit profound in like the impact the card can have on games, like the design itself. We're getting a little bit far off like the track of like 4-Color Blood, but you play this card in 4-Color Blood because it's just absurdly good. Like, it's just absurdly good, and that's apparent. But I kind of want to talk a bit to design because I think the design is interesting on it. I think it's interesting, and I think it's I think there's a lot that's wrong with this card, but I think there is enough in a direction that's right that it's a overall positive for the game. Falconmarth Aristocrat, similar philosophy to Questing Beast, just kills walkers dead. It's hard as hell to kill. It's not a legend, which is nice. Also flies, can get bigger. It's really good against lifelinkers because you can block things and then sack your things that are blocking it. Like, it just does a little bit of everything. You see this in Aristocrats, but it's just a good enough card that you can play it just in a mid-range aggressive deck. Huntmaster of the Fells, this card is absurd. I got some value off this card today, just play testing the deck against folks. Flipped it a couple times. this card's insidiously good. Like, I hadn't played with it for a while until I played with it, like, in a Jund deck, like, a week and a half ago. And I was like, man, I love playing this card. It's just so goddamn good. It doesn't look like it's that great either. It's, it's a 2/2 that makes another 2/2. Then it flips and does 2 damage to them and 2 damage to something they have. And then, like, if they don't do anything, if they cast 2 things to try to get back from behind because you kill one of their things, then, like, it flips back over and you gain 2 more life and you get another 2/2, and then, like, you don't do anything and it flips again. It's like, it just snowballs really fast. Faster than you'd think, if you fade removal on it early. Queen March has another Monarch card. I don't like the Monarch. I don't like what it does to the game of Magic, but my God, if it's a thing in Magic, I'm going to play it in this deck because, like we were saying, we're a deck that wins top deck wars, and if you're drawing 2 a turn, a deck that's this aggressive and this non-blue, you're going to do it. It's how you win games. Siege Rhino, just huge. Huge, gains life, tramples, life loss. It's just, yeah, very good. Saskia, I call this the mid-range scape shift. Generally, Saskia takes 1 attack to kill someone. If it's not, it still has Vigilance, which is great. Like, again, I was talking Vigilance on Kurnos. Vigilance is really good. Like, I was playing with Sarah the Benevolent a while back, and I was like, man, Sarah Angel can't be good in Canadian Highlander, and Sarah Angel was just fine. Yeah, and I'm an old school player, so I love Sarah Angel, but, like, shit, man. It's still really good. Some of these evergreen abilities are very overpowering, especially against the more aggressive decks. Because you can just chump Saskia, right? You generally want to chump Saskia because she represents a whole bullet. I mean, she's a 6-power attacker. She's a hasty crawworm, right? If she's hitting you. So, anyways, yeah. Miser's Mind Twist. I have the last point. What else can you do? You can do, like, Imperial Seal if you really wanted to. I don't think Imperial Seal is very, very good. Mind Twist is probably a better card to high roll. I've been meh on Mind Twist. Like, we are an accelerated deck, so, like, if you can, like, turn 1 Dork, turn 2 play a 3-drop, turn 4 smash them, or turn 2 play a 3-drop, turn 3 at 4 mana, play a Hymn to Turek for 3. That's not bad. Like, that's kind of the philosophy behind the card. It's not a great late game draw, but, like, the card's very powerful, and in context, situationally it can be very good. Which may be an argument against it. Maybe it should be a green Sun Zenith in the deck, but I'm playing quite a few, like, non-green based creatures in the deck, so I actually stayed away from that one, which is a card that folks will probably ask me about. Green Sun Zenith, I just didn't, it gets me Artifact Destruction, it gets me Saskia, it gets me Rhino, but, like, it gets me Questing Beast to kill a Walker, but, like, overall, like, I didn't feel like it didn't get my bullets as well as, like, playing a card like Tainted Pact or Eldamri's Call, was able to do. I felt like they were a little better for the build, and, yeah, we're not using Green Zenith to find, like, big mana either, so, like, like, we're not finding, Rofalos with it or anything like that, so it's like, I just felt like it was a little too slow. It was, like, 1 mana too slow, which is what it is. It's like casting the creature, for 1 extra mana. Anyways, guys, that is 4-color Blood. I am going to go on a quick break, and we'll be back momentarily with some gameplay with the deck. Alright, guys, we're back. Let me put down this card window. I think it's the sound of white noise here. This hand's great. It doesn't have a fetch land, which is one downside to it, but I assume there's a decent chance I can draw one, or my opponent will play one. There we go. We drew one. I go ahead and take damage here, because there's a chance that I want to Dreadbore plus Duress on the following turn. Not likely, but I may. They play out a Gather the Townsfolk. A fine card, tokens deck. I do go ahead and Duress them here. A little unfortunate. That was their only instant and or sorcery in their hand. They have a Deep Forest Hermit and a Shalai. The Shalai is going to need to die, because if they ever get to 6 mana, Shalai, if you're not familiar with the card, puts counters on things. Also gives the player, the owner of it, hexproof, and all your creatures hexproof. She notably does not have hexproof, so we're going to have to commit this Dreadbore against her. The Deep Forest Hermit will just fly over with the Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. They play on a Voice of Resurgence. It's fine. Just another dum-dum. The Deathrite Shaman, again, being a 1/2, so relevant. Like, this card has a lot of things wrong with it, but that's Canlander. We're playing a lot of broken cards. We're just going to go ahead and get a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat down here, chip in for some damage. We're going to hit back for 4, which is going to put us at a lower life total than they are, but like I think we just need to get a good base of damage down, and then next turn we'll get an untap and be able to play on an Elvish Mystic and be able to leave up the Deathrite Shaman to hold back the 1/1s. which should be good. They play out their Shalai here, as expected. We get Knight. It's a pretty good one there. Just go ahead and get rid of this card. If they draw like a Gaia's Cradle, I don't want to get high rolled, you know. I mean, I didn't have to do it that turn. I could have developed a Knight, but I think it just makes sense to get rid of Shalai there. If it is a Gaia's Cradle, we're just going to lose the game. Alright, go ahead and take the blocks here. I just trade the Mystic in. I don't really need more mana here. I'd rather save the life. Because we're basically in a racing situation. Not a very sophisticated game. It's just race. Just racing. Deathrite Shaman certainly helps in a race. I go ahead and gain life with the Knight here in case they have like some sort of like pump effect for their team. You know, it's not likely they do, but they could. Like a Zealous Persecution could be pretty bad for us. I mean, Zealous Persecution probably just ranched me out of the game. I guess actually it wouldn't. It wouldn't quite. No, it would. I think I'd just die there. Anyways, you know, we end up getting him with Deathrite Shaman plus Falcon Wrath Aristocrat. Yeah. So that was game one. It was just a race. It was a very simple foot race, and our cards are pretty well designed to race. Against tokens, that can be more challenging because they're going to have more Anthem effects, more pump effects, and a lot of bodies. They can go very wide, but generally they're like independent bodies. They're not going to be that good. They'd be like, you know, 1/1s and 2/2s. But they put like, you know, a Gaia's Anthem down or like, you know, Crusade down, Crusade effects down, and they can pretty quickly overwhelm us. But if we don't allow the game to get to that point, then, you know, I think our independent card quality can tend to get them. Anyways, guys, basically at the end of the day, they're like more of a synergy deck and we're less of a synergy deck. So the longer the game goes, the more they're probably going to be benefited as they assemble different components of their deck that work well together. Whereas, like, we just want to get as much value as we can out of our independent cards as fast as we can and draw more of them and ideally snowball them into the earth. And here, you can see it works out. So quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for the next game against Abzan Tokens. Alrighty, folks. We are back for game number 2. This hand is unacceptable. It just doesn't have payoff. This hand's fine. Got turn 1 mana acceleration. It's got a Bone Crusher for turn 2, or to remove something on turn 2, and then just attack with the Avacyn's Pilgrim. Find a Taiga here to get the Pilgrim down. Then we have a turn 3 Questing Beast, which is pretty strong. That'll kill someone fast. I just play on a Druid. I can't stomp this, so I'm just going to play out the Crusher and, you know, attack the next turn with it. Alrighty. OP has a Gideon ally of Zendikar. This pairs off very poorly against Questing Beast. I also drew the Murderous Rider, so I could kill it if I had to. But like directly killing the Gideon as opposed to doing 4 damage to them and killing it is pretty different. They get pretty ranched here. I'm going to go ahead and attack with all and see if I can get a 2-for-1 here, basically. Use my 1-for-1 removal spell to basically turn their block into a chump, which is what I managed to do here. They play a land and just concede it. So, Questing Beast, yeah. This is the first time I killed a Gideon ally of Zendikar with a Questing Beast, but it isn't the last, nor will it be the last that you will see during this video. It happened a significant number of times, more than I expected. Questing Beast, yeah. Very impressed with the card's quality. Is it a legend? Yeah, just get punched by Caracas? Yeah, but it's just... I mean, it's also hasty, so if their Caracas is tapped, they don't know you have it. You just, you know, hammer them with the damn thing. Anyways, guys, quick pause. It's also hard to tell the block. Kills True Name Nemesis. It just does everything. God damn, this card's so good. Anyways, I'm going to get off the hype train about Questing Beast. Like I said, I'm a newer player to it. I've assessed the card in the objective, but I haven't had a lot of practical experience with it, and my practical experience has pretty much lived up to expectations of how good I thought it was and kind of how good the hype train had it built up to be. So, quick pause, guys. We'll be back momentarily for the next game. Alright, guys, we're back. Playing against Blagai here. This hand's fine. It doesn't have white mana, which is a deficit, but I'm going to trust my deck building skills and hope to top deck into a fetch land that can find me white mana. Alright, I draw Kurnos, which is not really a great one here. I go ahead and Eldamri's Call. I'm going to look for a Deathrite Shaman. They have a fetch in play. If they don't want to crack their fetch to play things, then they won't, but I mean, then they're not playing anything. They do fetch, though, which turns on my Deathrite Shaman. They have a Harsh Mentor, which can punish me. I draw a fetch land anyways. Go ahead and fetch out a Bayou. I just cast a Siege Rhino out. I figure this is going to get removal out of them. They're playing a black-red deck. It looks like Jund, but it's black-red. They're already at a pretty low life total just from their own cards. And the Siege Rhinoceros. They play on a Lightning Skelemental. Basically Blightning on a 6/1 body. I lose some cards there. I'm not going to block. It's, I'm able to blow them out in combat here at a minimum. I get back, I believe, my Siege Rhinoceros and just 2-for-1 them, basically. They play on a Judith, which is a good one. They play on a Bomat Courier. So they're much more aggressive than I am. I'm just playing control here. Attack with Kurnos. I'm willing to trade Kurnos for 2 cards here. They're going to kill the Deathrite Shaman. It's basically a 2-for-2, which is a pretty good exchange rate versus Judith. Play out the Rhinoceros, drain them for 3, gain 3. They play out this thing, Judith. Just go ahead and block. They can. They can't get back They can't do damage off a token. Judith does not work with tokens. I play out Queen Marchesa. I should have attacked with all, I think, here. I don't. I was a play error on my part. I don't like how I played that. I just let them come through. I'm not going to block here, so I think I should have attacked. They do a bunch of damage. They're going to get a card draw off of the Monarchy, but I'm going to attack back for lethal on the following turn. They do. I like how they play this. So they sack the Bomat Courier here to kill the Assassin token, and see if they can find a bolt or something like that to take it off of lethal attack. They unfortunately do not. And I have Tainted Pact anyway, so I'll just find Lightning Helix. But they go ahead and concede the game here because they didn't find what they needed to find, which probably would have been a bolt. But like I said, I drew this Tainted Pact, so I'll find Helix and just dome them with a Helix and win the game. Anyways, guys, quick pause. Back momentarily for game number 2 versus Rakdos Aggressive. Yeah, I'd say Rakdos Aggro. Alright, guys, we're back for game number 2 versus Blaga here. This hand's not great. This is on my lower end of my range. I probably shouldn't have kept this. But I saw a Forked Bolt against the deck that I saw, and a Deathrite Shaman, so I had life gain, ton of removal. I'm like, I'll trust my top deck here. I have perfect mana. I don't think this was a great keep. I go ahead and just Wasteland here because I have a ton of mana, and they may be short on mana. Is a more aggressive deck. I go ahead and Forked Bolt their Bomat Courier because I don't want them to get more cards. I don't know why I exile land there with my Deathrite Shaman as opposed to being able to block. Probably just being dumb. Not playing well. Go ahead and get the Wasteland back with this Renegade Rallier that I found, which obviously one of the higher upsides. I've kind of drawn a lot of lands here, though, so right now I'm just trying to hope that they don't find their way out of this mana shortage. And I'm able to kind of ride my early board advantage because I haven't really drawn all that well. But again, this deck's always kind of just one top deck away. I'm going to stop playing lands at this point, though. I've got enough mana in play that if I lose my board, I can play pretty much... Actually, I can play any card off the top of my deck. Not any. I can't play Chandra, Torch of Defiance, if I lose my board. But with Deathrite Shaman, I could. They're down to 4 here. As you can see, they're kind of just hopelessly mana screwed. One of their routes to victory in this game is going to be their efficiency, so trying to overwhelm me as early as they can. If the game starts to go longer, I think over time I will tend to be more benefited because of the higher independent quality of my cards. But, if they're able to kind of get a fast start and disrupt my mana, or I keep a shadier hand, or I have to mulligan more, they can certainly get there. They're also a Price of Progress deck, so that's a card that, does have some decent equity in this matchup. But as you can see here, our overall higher independent card quality, and then this game right here, we mana screwed them. We high roll them with a Wasteland. They are an aggressive deck with likely a lower land count, than most mid-range decks are going to have. So double Wasteland that early in the game is going to be pretty detrimental. And even though we didn't really have the best of draws, we only drew a Lotus Cobra and a Fyndhorn Elves, and a Renegade Rallier, Fyndhorn Elves, and Lotus Cobra were our only non-land draws in an 8-turn game, which, is not great. It will, the median results, if I got to say I got 7 draws or whatever off the top of my deck, I would say they probably would generally be better than 1 Elf, 1 Lotus Cobra, and 1 Renegade Rallier and a bunch of lands. In this case, they weren't, but they were still, good enough to get there. Anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for the next game. Alright, guys, we're back playing against Card-Wielding Cat. This hand's acceptable. Well, alright. Here's the thing with this hand, right? This hand's fine. This hand's fine. It wanted to draw that pretty badly. We're just going to go ahead and Tainted Pact here. I do think I fetched poorly with this land. I think I was playing not the best. We're playing against Sandy B here. Which, I'm sorry, let me clarify. That is Abzan Pattern Rector combo. Hybrid combo. Sandy B is kind of some inside pool, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's just a hybrid combo deck. I think I ended up getting like a legend with this. Yeah, Marchesa, but I didn't fetch white, so like I think I should have gone further. What I was like, thinking in my head is like I wanted to go for like Renin 6, but I was like, I'll just take Marchesa. But like I fetched poorly for that. Like I probably should have taken Marchesa here. That was probably really greedy of me. They attack this turn, which is good news for me. It's like, alright, if you're attacking, like, I draw anyways. I Mise. I play my card engine out, attack. I kind of want them to attack back with Treetop Village. I don't really... If their hand's that bad, like, I don't think it's getting better. Academy Rector is, like, a really spooky card, but, like, honestly here, like, I think the right play is to kill it. I kill it. It does get Heliod, which is a combo piece, but it can't get Pattern of Rebirth, which if they have a sack outlet and another creature, they would just win on the spot. They do have the sack outlet, and they do have the other creatures. So, like, if I'd allowed it to live, like, I think only bad things would have happened for me. Go ahead and get an attack in here. They go ahead and chump, which is kind of nice for me. It's nice to get a creature off the board. I'm going to go ahead and get a Matthias on board here, and then Lightning Helix end step post Matthias trigger. Now I'm off Mathis. I'm off Mathis now. I don't think Mathis is like a bad card to play in this deck. I think it's a very powerful card. If your metagame is more aggressive, I kind of like it because it's just a way to gain life and provide value in your removal, which you run a robust amount of it. They go ahead and trade here with the Marchesa, which is fine. They're not really in a great position to be attacking here. They have just a land in play, or in hand. I go ahead and Eldamri's Call. Again, I find Aven Mind Sensor, like, I think that was the wrong thing to find, or I tapped poorly. One of the things you'll find on this deck is, like, you want to practice it a bit, because it's an exercise in fetching the right lands, and also, yeah, just mana use is very important in it. I do like my thinking getting Aven Mind Sensor, but I think I should have left my mana available to cast it. Because like my worry has to be like any tutor is going to be dangerous. This Cartel Aristocrat needs to go. It's a way to get through and steal the Monarchy when they're on nothing. Go ahead and hit him for 5 here. Put him on to 3. I believe they see their draw step and concede the game. Yep. Alright, so on to game 2. Kind of just got him there. Alrighty, guys, we're back. This hand's acceptable. It's not the best, but it has a turn 3 Huntmaster, and it also has instant speed way to remove creatures. It also has Caracas, which they're playing like, a couple combo pieces that are legendary cards. Heliod, Anafenza, Kintree Spirit, Safi, Eric's Daughter. I have to get the Revelark here. It sucks, but like I need to play out this Huntmaster. It's going to get Swords to Plowshared, but that Revelark is just going to be a big problem, especially with the sack outlet in play. So I opted just to take the Swords to Plowshares to the face. I'm kind of hoping at this point, like, I know their hand's nothing, and I'm hoping to top deck better than they do, which I think is a reasonable expectation. I think I should have double blocked the Casali Pride Mage there, to be honest. Draw another land here. Play out the Caracas, just leaving up the Trophy. The Trophy is good in this matchup from the standpoint that, like, they're going to have very specific components they require to stick around. Cartel Aristocrat being their sack outlet is more annoying because it means that targeted removal is not going to be able to remove it. I probably should have bounced. No, I actually like not bouncing EOT. The reason being they're on 0 cards. So if they're forced to sequence on it, if they play a creature while it's on the stack, I'll just bounce the Anafenza. So I like actually leaving it in play here. They give this thing protection, eat 2 of my things. I think it's actually a fine trade-off to bide some time to get Mother of Runes online. At this point, I was playing Mother of Runes, but like this is one of the games where it was kind of formative to me that like Mother of Runes really just isn't necessary. Like I'll just play bigger, better cards. In response to the Sylvan Caryatid, I just bounce it. They sack it for whatever reason. I guess they don't want it in their hand. I don't really, I guess to attack, but like I'm just gonna block with Mother of Runes here, and then give it to protection because they have 0 cards in hand, so there's really no risk. And again, I'm just kind of drawing all lands here. I'm like, oh, okay. They Cabal Therapy. They flashback Cabal Therapy. I just cast, I believe, the Assassin's Trophy targeting something. Yeah, this thing, they give it protection by sacking their Devoted Druid. So I'm just kind of like trying to chop through all of their creatures. You know, maybe I shouldn't have given them the choice there. Maybe I should have just targeted a Sully Pride Mage. But, like, objectively, the Devoted Druid may be more dangerous. Like, there's a lot of combos with it. Alright, so we end up killing off the Kasali Pride Mage here and saving the Mother Runes. I draw another mana source, and I'm like, alright, well, my top deck has not been kind to me. And my opponent hits a bomb. They hit a Birthing Pod, so we're going to probably lose this game now. They go ahead and sack this, I believe, find Eternal Witness getting back the Revel Arc, which is bad. I draw a Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf's a good card, but I needed it like 4 turns ago. I needed a card like it 4 turns ago so I could be on the offense. They go ahead and sack. They drew Academy Rector. Sack the Academy Rector to find Karmic Guide, getting back the Cartel Aristocrat after having put Pattern of Rebirth on an Eternal Witness to find Protean Hulk, to then sack their Cartel Aristocrat to find, I believe, how do they do this? Spike Feeder and Heliod. So they gain infinite life here, right? The game may break at this point. No, okay. The game broke. They gain up to 34 life. I tell them, like, hey, don't worry about it. I'm not going to try to life you directly. I do Lightning Helix the Spike Feeder not because like I'm trying to stop infinite life gain. They already, in my book, gained infinite life, which means that it's going to be very difficult for me to win. I'm going to basically have to deck them. But because if they have like Archangel of Thune, I don't want it to become infinitely huge. All their creatures become infinitely huge. They play the Revel Arc out this turn, sack the Revel Arc, find Vizier of Remedies, plus God, I can't think. Vizier of Remedies plus Red Cap, Murderous Red Cap, and then use their sack outlet, which is Cartel Aristocrat, to sack the Murderous Red Cap, which has Persist, comes back with a -1/-1 counter, but because there is a Vizier in play, no -1/-1 counters to be put on. So it does 2 damage to me every cycle, and from 8 takes me down to 0 in short order. So I lose this one. Unfortunately, the replay is a little busted. That's alright, though. I think I was able to actually explain the game, how it played out pretty effectively, but essentially they gained infinite life, which means at this point that this deck that I'm playing has to deck them. I don't think there's an alternate way I can win outside of decking them at this point, which is not impossible. Like, they're at a lower card count than I am. I don't have to draw cards. I just won't play Monarchy cards. I can probably like blank a lot of their independent card quality after I get through the combo pieces if I draw the right cards. It's not a very high percent to win, but like I think it is worth playing out at that point, just to, you know, 1, see more of their deck, and 2, to try to play that out. So I said, like, hey, like, it's gonna be very difficult for me to win. Like, I acknowledge you're at full life. I won't attack you. Like, I won't attack you your life points directly unless like it's gonna give me some sort of value, like I draw cards off it or something. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of how this game goes. We end up losing this one, and we go to game number 3. Alright guys, we're back. Hopefully this replay works. This hand is not good, but I keep it. Well, this hand's speculative, right? This hand doesn't have green mana, which is the most likely land of any card. It's like the most likely cards for me to draw are lands in this deck, or mana sources. And after that, the most likely mana source to draw is a green source. So I keep this hand for a couple of reasons. Like, it's on the very low end of my range, probably the 40th percentile. I probably should have kept it. I draw the land anyway, so I'm a sack. But it has Path to Exile, which is very good at disrupting creature-based combo. It has Forked Bolt, which is good at, you know, stopping enablers in the early game. Their hand is also fairly speculative. Like, it has a lot of 3-drops. It has a Worldly Tutor. It has a Heliod. So it has, like, 2 combo pieces, like a Cradle, which is kind of worthless with their hand, and, like, a bunch of Pain lands that can draw. They Green Sun Zenith here. Like, I pretty much, because I top decked this, like, I'm going to win this game because their hand was slow. And I had a Wasteland. I go ahead and wipe their board, attack them for, 8 here, put them down to 5 or 6. They play out Vizier of Remedies, which does nothing. I just go ahead and blow this thing up with Fire Covenant, and I have a lethal attack on the following turn. So yeah, kind of just turbo get them. And drawing this green source, you know, I drew 2 green sources, which, as I said, it is the most likely draw in my deck. But I think that hand was probably a little bit speculative. It just had good tools to disrupt the sort of combinations that they are trying to go after. So I don't know if it was worth it or not, but it was, you know, like, this is a combo. That's probably part of the reason they kept it, but it's very slow. I mean, it's 2 3 mana things, 6 mana worth of spells. You know, Path to Exile does just stop it. I mean, they play the Heliod first, but that's a whole turn where they're doing like kind of nothing. Like Heliod, like so these cards are weird, right? Like that's one of the things with, like hybrid combo is like Heliod's not really like that great of a card on its own. Like I don't think you should just slam it in Death and Taxes because like independently it just doesn't really do all that much. Like if you're on like a life gain deck, sure it's good then. But like you really have to have a lot going for it, and like hoping to land it and like not die after you land it. 'Cause it's kind of a time walk, right? Like you land a Heliod, and like the turn after you have infinite life. So if you like, if everything works out, like you basically like Chronotog yourself, like give them a turn, give them a whole turn just to smash you as hard as they can, which is what my deck is trying to do. And you know, we managed to get there against their hand. I'm not saying my range was any better on my keep. It worked out because I drew the green source, and you know I had the disruption to kind of put the heat to my opponent. So anyways, that was this game, guys. I'm going to quick pause. We'll go jump into the next match. Alrighty, guys, we're back. I'm playing against Munwolf here. I keep this hand. It's a little bit speculative because it doesn't have a ton of pressure, but like if it draws any fetch land, it's really good. I've got this Wrenn and 6 that like if they're playing Mana Dorks, can just blow up one of their Mana Dorks. I probably should have played the Mox Jet first in case they had Daze. That was probably that was not probably. It was a mistake on my part if they're playing a blue deck. It does not appear they're playing a blue deck, at least as I can tell right now, but they are playing a blue deck. They play out a Wall of Blossoms, which isn't really a problem for my hand. This hand didn't have white mana, though, which is really a deficit of it. I go ahead and Mind Twist him here, get a Karn, a land, and a Swords to Plowshares. Not really in a great spot. Not really in a great spot. Questing Beast does absolutely 0 against a Caracas on board. So I have to just uptick my Wrenn and say go. Any fetch land, and I feel like I'm winning this game pretty easily. I go ahead and Abrupt Decay this thing because I want my Wrenn and 6 to, you know, stay on board and basically force a sub-game where they have to deal with it. They play out a Gideon, ally of Zendikar, which now because their Caracas is tapped, I'm going to be able to kill with this Questing Beast. Again, just need a fetch land. Like if I can cast the cards in my hand, I feel like I'm in a good spot here, but like, you know, Tidal Striker's not a bad card, but it's not really doing all that much here. Wrenn and 6 gets hit, they Growth Spiral, draw Collective Brutality. I go ahead and discard a card and take a look at their hand. There's nothing of value in it. They play out a Nissa. There was a Nissa in it, is what was in it. I couldn't get it, though. They have a Caracas, so they can continue to bounce their Nissa. I draw another card that has a white mana symbol in it, so I am not casting spells here. Play a Tireless Tracker out with no land drop, so it's like, it's pretty bad. Plus this Wall Blossoms will just chump block it. So, alright, this is an interesting turn. So I draw another non-fetch, another non-white producing land. They tap their Caracas here. Like, this is, I like how my opponent plays this. This is like a fairly obvious trap play. They're trying to trap me. They have a counterspell. Like, it's like 99% sure they have a counterspell because I'm sure they know their wall cannot block Questing Beast. And if Questing Beast hits them, it's going to kill this Nissa. So, like, I have no other play other than, like, sacking my Clue. I could sack my Clue and try to find, like, a white source, but I've already played a land for the turn. And even if I did find a white source, what am I doing? I'm playing out a Knight of Autumn as a 4-3. Not really great. So I think you just go for it here. You just YOLO it and hope they made him play a mistake. I YOLO the Questing Beast down, even though it's pretty obvious they probably have a counterspell. And I believe they do. I believe it's like a Disallow or something like that. Maybe not a Disallow. It's a Mystic Dispute. Guys, don't play this card. Mystic Dispute is not generally, like, unless your meta is really blue-based, like, I wouldn't play that card. Play Veil of Summer. I guess maybe not in every deck, maybe not in this deck. But I'm not a fan of Mystic Dispute. I don't think it's that great. Well, it's a good card, but it's a sideboard card, right? I go ahead and attack here and trade off just to get this thing off the board. I could ultimate the Wrenn and 6 here, but it does nothing for me. I play out my Tarmogoyf. Their Tamiyo has drawn them an extra card because I wouldn't say I was forced to attack, but like I think I'm pretty obliged to attack there. Just try to knock out one of their walkers. Alright, they Wargate, get a Teferi, throw away my Wrenn and 6, which my Wrenn and 6 wasn't doing that much anyways. I think they were just afraid of the ultimate, but the ultimate like gets back like Abrupt Decay, you know, to blow up their Nissa, I guess. I don't really have a lot of good playlines here. I just was relying on drawing a fetch land to cast my spells. I was relying on a fetch land to cast two of the spells that were in my opening, or one of the cards in my opening hand, and then I happened to just draw a bunch of white cards, right? So I drew the wrong half of my deck. And that's a thing that can happen, right? And white is our secondary color in the deck, green being the strongest. And if you don't open on it, like, you can run into draws like that. Like, if it was red or black, like, I think it's a little bit less risky because you're going to draw less red and black. I'm sorry, white's our third color. So, I don't know. I don't know if I stand by this keep. I think this keep was fine. It just didn't pan. Out. Just variance. I didn't talk to Jer here in a second. I'm going to go quick pause, guys. I'll chat up Jer. Alrighty, you guys are back. Yeah, so this hand looks fine. Their deck apparently has more walkers in it. This hand has a redraw in the form of Nurturing Peatland. It also has a turn 2 Questing Beast, which is a lot of power on the board. So, I'm going to keep it on the draw. I think it's fine. Hit a Bayou seems fine. Go and get an Avacyn's Pilgrim down here. I don't play out the Mox because I know they're not on a black deck, so them hand attacking it is not that relevant, and it's possible they could do something like cast out a Ancestral Vision and not leave up counter magic, so I can hit them with my Questing Beast. I do expose this card before that they have played a Planeswalker, but they play a Planeswalker here, oblige me. And I get to hammer fist them with this big old Questing Beast. I go ahead and draw here. I do Inquisition them because I want to kind of see if they have a Wrath effect. I end up taking the Muyanling. The Muyanling wasn't really necessary to take because I could just kill it with attacks. But if they had a Supreme Verdict, I didn't really want to play my Scavenging Ooze into it. I couldn't have hand attacked it out with Inquisition, but I could have at least forced their action and had threats remaining afterwards. This Visions is going to come off the stack, but it's probably going to be too slow. They just gain life with this card because they know it's going to die anyways to the Questing Beast, and their 1/1s cannot block it. That's kind of what I was talking about, Questing Beast, how dumb this card is. They're just dead here. I Lightning Bolt them, and I have 7 power on board. I say dumb, but this is a deck. My opponent, Munwolf, is playing a deck that obviously plays a very large volume of Planeswalkers, basically Bant Planeswalkers. And in a lot of ways, Planeswalkers in certain decks can, render, typical attritional magic kind of moot. Because they're so goddamn snowbally. But Questing Beast just kind of says, whatever, bud, I'm still going to attack you, and you're not going to block me, so your walkers are going to die. And honestly, I think it's a good thing the card exists. Because it kind of keeps strategies like this in check. It's kind of just like an answer card to it. It's also proactive. It's probably not exceedingly fun to play against, but you don't have to play against it that long because it kills you very fast. So it's not like stacks or something like that. And it's just, I think there is some elegance to how the card works against Planeswalkers, because traditionally, the subgame they create, in my opinion, is really not that interesting. It's kind of it's not deterministic, but it's more. In probabilities, it's more deterministic that eventually the advantage will go to someone who has more Planeswalkers in play. In normal terms of Magic, against Storm, Planeswalkers are dog shit. You just lose to Storm decks. Against Time Vault combo, Planeswalkers don't matter. So there's ways to render them moot, but in traditional playing traditional games of Magic, it's tough to render them moot without rendering them the focus of the game that you're in. I guess is my point. And Questing Beast does that in a pretty elegant way. Probably a little bit unfair, but then again, Planeswalkers do some pretty unfair things if given the time and the range to kind of be used multiple times. They are essentially James Tomes that are proactive, right? Anyways, yeah, we managed to get them here with Questing Beast. Questing Beast, good card against Planeswalker deck. Alright, quick pause, guys, be back momentarily. Alright, guys, we're back for game number 2. I'm sorry. So, I actually made an error here in my video. That was game number 3. I'm going to show you game number 2 now. We ended up winning this match, but quick pause, be back momentarily. Alright, guys, now we're back for a game number 2 against Munwolf. This hand's fine. I go ahead and duress here. They actually have nothing in their hand, even though they're a Planeswalker deck, and I'm damn, I missed. That sucks, but I didn't have anything better to do, and I wasn't planning on trying to use the duress later on. I don't think it's going to per se get better because I have stuff to do with my mana in the interim. They go ahead and get a Jace down. I draw very well and find my Plateau off of this Flooded Strand to Lightning Bolt the Jace and keep their hand roughly as is outside of their draw steps. They have found a Ugin the Ineffable, but it's a very expensive card. I have this Huntmaster of the Fells, which doesn't seem like they have an apparent way to deal with. They're just going to flash in and block here, which is good for me. That's going to remove this threat from their hand and allow me to get the Huntmaster down pretty much unmolested. It doesn't really seem like the Kasali Pride Mage, outside of having Exalted triggers on it, is going to be that relevant here. They go ahead and resolve a Karn. I believe I give them... I give them an Elspeth Suns Champion. Yeah. Because I'd rather than not have Thragtusk. Thragtusk is just more of a problem for me than the Elspeth is. I have a trampling threat that I have a Noble Hierarch to kind of pump it up. It's possible that I should have just Chain Lightning here. I go ahead and attack their Elspeth. They're not going to block. They just lose it. Maybe I should have Chain Lightning one of the human soldiers and just gone to face. I don't know. I have the Scavenging Ooze to deal with the Elspeth, which is nice. I also double spelled, so my Huntmaster flips. I'm not going to cast spells this turn, so I'm going to get basically a draw off of Huntmaster. They flash in their Burb. Go ahead and pump the Scavenging Ooze up. Trade off a couple, trade off a token, basically. They go ahead and Dovin Bomb, which does make it so I can't activate Scavenging Ooze, so I activate it before that happens. They play out a Gideon of the Trials, make my Huntmaster not do any damage. Get them to have some lands, but they're down to one card. Draw a Helix here, which is pretty good, because it allows me to attack them for lethal. I'm sorry, it does not. I'm one short. So the Ravager flips. I knock Teferi down to 2. Helix the Teferi, so they don't get their extra draw step. They Dovin Bond to draw. They play on a Wargate for 5, which I believe gets an Arena Rector, which is irrelevant because Planeswalkers don't activate at flash speed unless they have a Chain Veil or the Teferi Ultimate for the 6-mana Teferi. There's only a couple ways in the game to make Planeswalkers activate at instant speed, and they do not have any of them in play. So I just go ahead and Chain Lightning this. It'll probably get an Ugin the Spirit Dragon or a Karn or something. Yep, Ugin the Spirit Dragon. And I attack them for very lethal. Alright, that was the Game 2. Game 2 was a little more attritional. Game 3 was a ranching, and Game 1, it just didn't pan out. I didn't hit my white mana. But we were able to kind of get through the Planeswalker deck, which seems like a pretty cool deck. I will be honest, I don't... Me personally, that's just personal preference, not me stating, that Planeswalkers equal bad. I just don't enjoy playing with this many of them. Me as the person playing, I don't mind playing against them. Any way to win a game of Magic's fine by me as long as it's legal and you're not cheating. But me personally, I just don't find them that fun. So I play them, but I play select few, the best ones generally. You see in this deck, there's 4 of them. Even though typical Bloodlist, older original kind of Bloodlist had 8. They played a ton of them because the creatures just weren't as good, and Planeswalkers are very strong. So yeah, you tended to play quite a few of them because you could use them to grind people out and make your creatures better. Equipment, same thing. But anyways, I still think a good aggressive mid-range gameplay can kind of get through them, and creatures can be kind of the nemesis of a lot of the Planeswalkers too. And maybe it's you look at Bant, a Bant control shell like this that's using a lot of walkers to grind value. Maybe more Wrath of Gods. Wrath of Gods would be problematic for me here. I just if I get Supreme Verdict here, I'm going to lose the game. More than likely, I'm going to draw Finhorn. I'll just be all right, well, I'm dead. As a thought, if you're building shells, I still think you need some board control outside of just walkers themselves, because they can definitely get overwhelmed very easily by red decks, etc. So, anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for the next game we'll be showcasing. Alright, guys, we're back. Yes, hand's unkeepable. I'm going to keep this one, but it's not good. In the dark. It's slow. I'm on the draw. My opponent almost missed their land drop. Draw a 2-drop, which is pretty good. 2-drop's not bad. It's at least something to put pressure on. They Overgrown Tomb here. Play a land out. Him me. Hit a Kasali Pride Mage plus a Windswept Heath. I draw Mox, which is great. It allows me to get down to 4-3 this turn, which is pressure. They appear to be some sort of bug control deck. They duress me, hit nothing. They probably drew that for the turn because they would have turn one it, or they drew it on turn 2 and had him already in hand and went to him instead. Play out Falconwrath Aristocrat here. They don't have a counter spell, which is nice. This is one of those cases where like it's very likely they're playing Bug. I think based on Scalding Tarn in their deck, because it doesn't fetch any black source other than like Underground Sea or Breeding Pool or like Tropical Island, or I can't think of the blue black one. But like playing out the Falconwrath Aristocrat there, it's just that's good cowboy magic. Like it's like, hey, if you have a counter my spell. If you don't, die very fast to it. Same thing with Questing Beast. Like I'll generally speaking continue to draw pretty good cards because I'm a good stuff deck. If they have the counter spell, they have the counter spell. They didn't do anything. The worst thing I could probably do is like not attack them for lethal and allow them to Mystical Teachings. So forcing them to counter there and not Mystical Teachings, which is a thing they could possibly do, keeps them off of like finding a Mystical Tutor to like find a Wrath effect to deal with the board. You name it. Like there's a lot of bad things that could happen if I'm not like continuing to tie up their mana, making them have it. So yeah, just managed to kind of get there. Like just Bugwrack is honestly a deck that I think could statistically like beat this deck because it's just a more grindy deck. It's a little more up on the scale of grindiness, and like it's gonna have maybe not more. It probably has more 2-for-1s. Like it has more ways to accrue vast mana advantage and card advantage probably than our deck does, but its overall independent card quality is going to be generally speaking lower. So we're definitely the aggressor in this matchup. The longer the game goes, the more they're going to be favored, and I think you want to kind of play it the way you saw me play it, which is like, hey, have it every single time, and if you don't have it every single time, I'm going to kill you. Like, and sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, but I think you don't want to, you don't want to play it timidly. Anyways, guys, quick pause. We'll be back momentarily for Game 2 against Bug Wreck. Alright, guys, we're back. Yeah, hand's great. This is a good blood hand. I mean, it'd be better if it had a 3-drop. There's a 3-drop. There's a lot of 3-drops in the deck, so drawing one would not be unreasonable. Play on a Prismatic Vista. Brainstorm with a fetch. Pretty good. Find a swamp, so I know I'm pretty much safe from any removal except for, like, what here? Daze would get me, Dismember. Thalia getting down, though, is a pretty big game. It's going to make this come into play tapped. I believe they play on a Search for Azcanta, which is great for me to see. I don't care about Search for Azcanta that much on this deck. I get a Mox, which is not bad because it allows me to play around Daze. I'm going to get this Queen Marchesa down to start getting my cards going. It's a little bit less of a clock, but I think the cards are going to be more relevant, and it's only a 1-point difference. And if they have a Wrath effect, like Wrathing with the Monarchy going on is like not really that great. You're just like, okay, cool. I Toxic Deluge you, and I'm still losing the game. If you're the control player. Like, if you're a control player and you've ever had a Monarch card resolved against you, like, it's a bad feeling. I do go ahead and get my Falconwrath Aristocrat down. If it's Damnation they're trying to draw to or play to, it's not going to get there. Against the Falconwrath Aristocrat, I have lethal on board, so they have to do something. They go ahead and ponder. Evidently find an island. Dead of Winter, but the Marchesa stays around, so it puts them in a virtual 1. I believe I just go ahead and show them the pre-combat Chain Lightning to say, hey, do you have a counter spell for this? You have a Force Negation, Force of Will wouldn't do it. Force Negation or Bust, pretty much, or Misdirection. They get Misdirection, Force of Negation. Force of Will wouldn't do it because it put them to 3, and the Marchesa would kill them. Fog could also, I guess, buy them a turn. Didn't have a lot of outs here. Anyways, just kind of pressure them into the dirt. That's kind of what the deck's designed to do against control. Now, if the game goes longer, you're going to see definitely a different game. I just don't think they had enough of the right tools to kind of like fight against our onslaught here of, acceleration into powerful 3, into powerful 4. That's a draw engine into another powerful 4. It's a lot. That's a lot to deal with early in the game, and yeah, that's kind of how the deck's designed to play, right? It's like, hey, just snowball them out. Use modern card design, continued modern card design trend in development of the game to avalanche them in card quality, is kind of the idea. And yeah, that's going to wrap up the gameplay portion. I'm going to go on a quick pause to go back to the deck, and I'm going to do a quick portion on like cards that I think are probably the most cuttable, because someone asked me, like, hey, it'd be helpful if you kind of gave an overview on what you think the most expendable cards are in the deck, and I'll kind of go through and talk some of that for folks who may not already have strong opinions on how the deck should be built. All right, guys, we're back. All right, so a couple cards that I think could be looked at for quality purposes. Like Grimflayer is a pretty high upside, but in general pretty low floor card. It's just shock bait. One of the things I found with this deck is that I was going through a lot of cards, and I'm playing a pretty even mix of instant sorceries, creatures, and lands. A lot of fetch lands, so lands will generally be in the graveyard. A lot of creatures that'll typically be killed and traded off in combat. Mana dorks will be burned off. And then a lot of removal spells, some of which are sorceries, some of which are instants. Then I have some artifacts, enchantments that are just randomly stapled to other cards. So getting to not domain, delirium on this card's not that hard. And as a 2-mana 4/4 trampler that is a card filter, this card's very good at that point. I haven't played with it enough in the deck to verify that I still like it as a 2/2 for 2 mana that has trample and does that. It does set itself up. I do think the upside on this card, the ceiling on this card is pretty high. The floor is fairly low. This card is possibly more of a pet card than anything, and I could see cutting it to put in something different on a quality level. The next part I'd probably talk as far as cuts go is really more about flexibility, flex slots. This is a very flex card. It's high enough quality that I don't mind playing it as a quote-unquote hate bear, but it's a flex slot card. Plague Engineer, if you're not in a creature meta, you can cut it. It's really more of a flex slot. If you're playing it's goblins or Hoof. Hoof can be a harder matchup for this deck. I mean, you do have a lot of removal, but some of it's more point removal, and burning off a bunch of elves doesn't always get there against them. Plague Engineer can just do it as a many for one answer. You also have Fire Covenant for that reason. Fire Covenant's a card you don't have to play, though. If you're not in a creature metagame, you cut this card and put in more pressure, because you just want to win fast. Vindicate, same story. I like having a flexible, one card answers goddamn anything, except for hand zone stuff and stack based stuff. But the fact that you can use this just to deal with any permanent, I like the flexibility of that, but you don't per se need it. I do think that in this style of deck, Maelstrom Pulse is just kind of vestigial. It's just not quite at a high enough level that you should be running it anymore. Alright, so Green Sun Zenith and Eldritch Evolution. You can run those. I was talking to Jer about those cards. GSZ, I may have talked in the beginning of this VOD. I have too many cards that it doesn't find that I didn't really want. I mean, it can find a Questing Beast, which is Planeswalker removal. It can find Saskia just to murder people flat. Huntmaster, if you really need bodies to block and not die and gain some life. Generally, Siege Rhino tends to be better at that, because it's generally more life than the decks that are trying to beach down with 2/1s. Then this thing blocks well. This also blocks very well. Tireless Tracker is another thing I've GS-setted for a decent bit, because it's just a card engine. And then artifact removal, you have your Kasali Pride Mage and your Knight of Autumn. I don't know why you get Pride Mage if you had Autumn in deck, because it's the same mana amount, because you have to activate this thing. But, maybe you've used one already. But it doesn't really find enough. It doesn't find my Palace Jailer, it doesn't find my Thalia, it doesn't find my Kuranos, which I actually really like in this deck. I think hating out Bins is really good. Bins have gotten more and more powerful. You have Cling to Dust now, you have Kroxa, you have Uro. There's a viable dredge deck in the format. Storm is not dead. It's still very, very, very good. It's a deck that I play on a pretty regular basis. You have a lot of decks that, Reanimator, but, you don't see that as much anymore. You have, Unearthed creatures. You have Grave Crawlers, black recursive creatures. There's, even Red has stuff gosh, I can't think now. Lava Dart, doesn't get played as much anymore, but the Hellspark Elemental. There's a few cards in red that care about the graveyard zone. But this card just does enough, and it's just a 3/3 Vigilance Menace lifelinker for 3. It's just a big ass dummy that just gains you life, is hard as hell to raise. It just requires a bolt. It requires an Incinerate. I mean, it's going to generally still trade down on mana for the red removal. It's going to kill it, but It's generally going to be 2 mana red removal. Yes, there's Bolt, there's Chain Lightning, but those are the best. The rest of them like require them to sack lands or have done damage to you, all that. So yeah, like GSZ was kind of out, but like I was talking to Jared, like he thinks that like Eldritch Evolution is probably a good card in the deck. The issue I have with like GSZ and like Eldritch Evolution is like they're very tempo negative plays for perfect selection, and I'm not really a creature combo deck or a deck that like is accruing value through synergy. I'm a deck that's accruing value through quality. And while selection is very good, double green is a little bit of a harder mana cost. I'm playing Courser, Ergo, I was talking Courser. Maybe, actually, Courser should go over the cut pile. It's a card that you could cut, and like I wouldn't think you were crazy for replacing it with something else. But like Eldritch Evo, like you're finding like your Palace Jailer. Like the card we talked about was like finding Palace Jailer because like Palace Jailer is really really good. Or finding Queen Marchesa, whatever. Just something that introduces the monarchy, which does recuperate the lost card, because I mean, like Eldritch Evolution is card disadvantage. Like you're sacking a card, you're exiling Eldritch Evolution, and you're sacking a creature card to find a perfect creature card. So that's still a 2-for-1. Like Natural Order is a 2-for-1. Now, generally speaking, functionally, it's not going to be because it finds Primeval Titan that finds 2 lands, and it's a 3-for-2. But at its heart, like at its core, like it is a 2. Those are 2-for-1 cards. Like you're 2-for-1ing yourself. Now, oftentimes they don't play out that way because whatever you find is so good that like it just kills them. It just wins you the game. But I would say that Palace Jailer, while very good, like this, and this is a creature-rich deck. A lot of that does tie back to the mana. Like this is what 8 mana dorks, so it's 30 creature deck. Like I don't really count these mana dorks are creatures. But like I'm not playing equipment, I'm not playing like Zealous Persecution effects, I'm not playing pump effects. So like they're not really per se great attackers or blockers. They're just there to get my 3 drops down on turn 2. So that way they're kind of like Moxen, or what's a better way of describing them? They're like jeweled amulets in a way. I want to get to turn 3 on turn 2 and turn 4 on turn 3. Like that's just what I want, and I want to have a good statistical advantage to be able to do that on a regular basis. Their long-term utility is pretty low. I mean, like they're fueling scavenging oozes and they're chump blocking, and I'm trying to get through in the air and attack with my big dumbasses. It's kind of the idea. So like my thinking is like Palace Jailer is like good in this deck, but it's situationally good, and it's oftentimes going to be like in my play experiences with this specific build and in general with these style of decks, one of the last creatures you play, depending on the matchup. Now, against like Control, yes, you just land a Jailer and you fucking ranch them. Because if they're tapped out and you don't think they're on the Force of Will or Force Negation draw, like if you can get a Jailer or a Marchesa down, they're going to lose the game. Like against like reactive blue control decks, they're going to lose the game. Those decks are fewer and far between though, because that strategy, that archetype is kind of dying off. Like a lot of those decks are going to have more proactive lines that involve Planeswalkers, involve Avid Mind Sensors, Idiot Birds. When I say Idiot Birds, I mean Brazen Borrower, Vidilian Clique, Nimble Obstructionist, Restoration Angel, like basically Flash Threats, Snapcaster Mage. Like they're going to involve more of those style of cards because they just have to, because the format's quick enough that like it's really tough for them to get away with playing like 0 creatures or like 2 creatures or whatever. The days of Snapcaster, like JVP, are I think pretty much gone. It's just really hard to get away with that, or just like only entreat the angels. You can play Control like that still, and it's okay. It's more of a 30-70 deck now. But most decks aren't set up that way. So, like, if you're just Palace Jailering, like, really early, especially at 2-for-1 disadvantage on the board. Like, when I say 2-for-1 disadvantage, I don't even mean like in hand. Like, in this deck, the board's really relevant. And when you're playing a card like Palace Jailer, the board's really relevant. You want to have a well-developed board that can block and attack very well so that you can, one, maintain the monarchy. And if you do somehow lose it to, like, a Flash Flyer or something like that, you can regain the monarchy exceedingly well. Trading the monarchy back and forth is not a big deal, but losing the monarchy in a board situation where you can't regain it, which I think Eldritch Evolution has a higher probability of setting up because you're already sacking something, is not, in my opinion, as favorable. So I don't know. Like, there's definitely more thought to like trying out more cards like Eldritch Evolution, like Green Sun Zenith, maybe Finale of Devastation, but they're very mana intensive cards, and one of them is card disadvantage on board. And some of the time they're just going to work out, but I think statistically, I like the odds of just keeping this as a good stuff deck with is few 2-for-1 for selection advantage cards. Like, at the point that I'm playing Eldritch Evolution, I feel like you want to consider Diabolic Intent, right? Because Diabolic Intent's a perfect selection tutor, but you have to sacrifice a creature, and I don't think the style of deck is gonna per se get better because of that. Given I have a lot of mana dorks, so maybe Diabolic Intent's not crazy. Like, you could do it if you were in a metagame where like you had to put a lot of silver bullets in your deck. Like, when I say silver bullets, I mean like Kuranoses, maybe Athalia, Guardian of Thraben, which you could run in this deck. There's a significant number of spells, but you could run Thalia, Guardian of Thraben if Storm was a big thing, and like you really wanted to play this deck in a Storm metagame, which you don't want to do, but you could. So yeah, I mean that was kind of like that was actually what I just BS'd with him about when I paused the game, and you saw me BSing a little bit with Jer. But anyways, like those are some of the cards I would cut. Like Courser, just on not thematic level. How do you put it? This deck wants to be killing folks, and Courser doesn't really kill folks fast, but it does give you good equity in the aggressive matchups, which I want this deck to be good against. I want this deck to, maybe not always, but on a pretty regular basis, beat Red Deck Wins. Red Deck Wins is still probably the better deck, like, 'cause it just beats. It's holistically better because it just has better odds against like the combo decks than this deck does. Whereas I think this deck, based on pilot experience and like how you build the deck for the metagame you're in, like you can in general beat most everything outside of like hard combo on a regular basis. You have to play it well, and I think you have to have it tuned and built well for your metagame. But yeah. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and cut it there, guys. I think I am going pretty long on this one. If you remember anything from this, I hope you remember my rant on mana at the beginning, because what a lot of folks will do with these style of decks specifically is pick them up and then just like change out cards, but like never look at the mana base. The mana base changes in this deck all the time based on what cards you choose to put in. It's very mutable. It's a good stuff strategy, so like changing cards out is perfectly acceptable and reasonable, because the deck is intended to be like a very highly flexible build, very immutable and changeable for whatever situation you're in. But that said, make sure when you do that, you take your mana base and you rebuild it so that your mana base has a good wagon wheel. Oh, not this one. This one right here. You want your wagon wheel to look like this. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Oh, and if you're curious, I was actually looking through some old builds of Four-Color Blood. This is a deck that I used to play a lot of in essentially 100-card singleton Eurolander. Probably one of the best results, like one of the decks with the most results. I also played it a lot because I was trying to prove a point on how good the deck was under a ban listing. But in raw terms of results, I did pretty well with it. But if you're curious, like you can jump on Gatherling here and look up my doofy name, Loman02. There's a bunch of builds of it. If you're curious about historical builds of the deck does have a pretty cool history and like a bunch of different cool ways folks have built it. And yeah, it's a deck that I have a lot of reps with, and I enjoy playing because it tends to always play a game of Magic. So I only bring that up because if you're curious, you can go check out some older builds of the deck that were built for 100-card singleton, which is a sideboarded format, unpowered, so it's not going to have Moxen and whatnot. But in general, like the threats and stuff that like folks use are going to be pretty similar cards. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it there. I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope it was beneficial and brought value to your Magic gaming experience and Canadian Highlander experience. Take care, guys, and enjoy.